So, welcome to phpMyAdmin tutorial by Dieter, Isaac, Mark and Ruslan.
Hi and welcome to the phpMyAdmin tutorial talk. Thanks for introducing us. So basically we'll give a tutorial about how phpMyAdmin works, and we'll also explain what phpMyAdmin is. So my first question to the audience, who knows phpMyAdmin? Right, that's quite a few people, almost everybody. Who has ever used it? Right, that's all the majority, but I'm going to the introduction anyway. So what is phpMyAdmin? Basically, it's a web interface to manage a MySQL database. MySQL database, you can think of this as in a broad way. So it's actually the entire ecosystem. So also not only the original MySQL database, but also the MariaDB and the Drizzle database, which are derived from the original MySQL. It is a web interface, so it means that the software is running on a web server and communicates with a MySQL database either on the same server or on a separate server, it doesn't matter. And you interact with the interface using your web browser on your own PC. It's written in PHP, and more and more JavaScript is being added over the years because we're relying more and more on JavaScript to make the interface more dynamically with Ajax and forms and dynamically updating of data. You can use it to browse the information that's on the server, to access tables and see what's in it and update data and change data. But you can also use it to manage the server, for instance, to manipulate or to change the user access levels for the users. So basically that's about it. We exist for 15 years now in September. Our last major release was in March of this year, so currently we're at version 4. And version 4.1 is in development. It will probably be released somewhere in the spring of next year. The package we get ships with about 20 languages, and several of them are being translated, but we only add the languages that are translated enough so that they can be added. So how to get it? Of course, on our website, you can download the package. It's also available for a lot of distributions. It's available in Debian, for instance, but also in Fedora and other distributions. It's also part of a lot of packages like SAMP, WAMP, and cPanel. And of course, you can get the latest version on our Git repository. So that's for the introduction. I will now show a few basic features of phpMyAdmin. So if you go to the login screen, you see something like this. You just log in with your username. This is actually the username that's defined in the MySQL server. So phpMyAdmin does not have a separate list of usernames and user privileges. It uses the credentials you have and the rights you have that are configured in the MySQL database server. So you just log in, and then you get something like this. On the left side, you can see a navigation panel listing all the databases, and you can click on them to show the tables. And on the right side, you see the information you are actually looking for. So I will first show you how to create a database. So you go to databases. That makes sense, I think. And then in the create database field, you just type a name. So I'll add test tutorial. And then create. And as you can see, in the list here, the test tutorial database was added, and also on the left side in the navigation panel, you don't see it yet because there's a feature that collapses databases that have the same prefix. You can configure how this works, but I'm not going into detail there. But you can see that the database is there. So now we'll go into that database. And to create a table, I will minimize the navigation panel to have a bit more room. We'll create a table test and add 2 columns. And go. Should be busy. Ah, there it is. So now you can define the type of table, the type of columns. So I will create an index and a value. The value, I'll make a varchar of 8. Here you can, with storage engine, you can choose which storage engine to use. For this case, I will use InnoDB, but you can use any one you like. And then for index, I will define the primary and add the automatic indexing. And then save. Now the table is created. So if you go back, you'll see here that there is this table. And if you go to structure, you can see that we have an ID and a value. And if you go to indexes, you'll see that a primary index has been created for the ID column. So currently there's nothing, if you click browse, there's nothing there. So you can, with insert, you can add data. Because the index is automatically created, I'm not going to fill anything in. Just I'll take foo and bar. You see that the ignore thing was automatically disappeared once you start typing in the second fields. So I'm going to insert 2 records at once. So you can see now that they have been inserted, and if you go to the browse, you can see that there are 2 records now in the table. Another feature I would like to show is how to browse data. I'm going to take a different database because there are more tables there. So I'll go to the employees database, tables. The PC is a bit slow. So here you see quite a lot of tables. Imagine you have a database, you have a table with 15 or 20 fields, but you're only interested in 3. But they're at the back of the list. Then they're not on the screen, and it's difficult. So there's a possibility of dragging, changing the order, so you can move over it and drag it to another place, and then the column moves. There's also a possibility of hiding tables. So you press on this arrow, and then you get a list of all the tables, and just unmark the ones that you don't want, and then they disappear. Or you can just click on show all, and then they appear again. Another nice feature that was added in version 4 is that you can edit that record like you would edit a spreadsheet. So you just double click on a field, and then you can change the data, change the records, hit enter, and then that field will be updated. You can also use the edit button, but then you will get a big form with all the entries, and then this is much more easier, much faster than using the edit form if you just want to change one record. So that was about adding and changing data. Now I'm going to show you a bit about user management. You have to go back to the server level. So there's a tab called users. It used to be called privileges in a previous version. So there you see a list of all the users that are defined for this database server. So with add user, you can create a new user. You'll get a form. So you type a name, test tutorial. For any host, we'll take localhost, and then generate. You can see that a password is generated. You're supposed to copy this and store it somewhere to be able to log in later, but I will not do this because it's not necessary for the tutorial. You can define the rights that the user has on the database, the entire database server, so all the tables, but you can also, and I'm going to show you that after adding the user. So now the user is added, so you can see in the list, this tutorial, this user has been created. And if you go to edit privileges, and scroll down a bit, then you can see database specific privileges. And here you can select a database, for instance, this tutorial database, and then you can grant all the privileges only on that database, and then that user will only have access to that database, but not to the rest of the server. So that's about it for me.